Right, very good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to hand over to Anikó, who's going to present tonight and on the topic of beer and food. So please could I ask you to give a warm welcome to Anikó, and I'll just remind you that all our other workshops, including this one, will be recorded and placed online, which for some people who weren't able to get tickets, they'll be able to watch it later on. We've got another workshop coming up, one of our all about beer workshops, but I'll let you look at the EBCU website under events for that. And without further ado, and remind you again, please, if you've got any questions, do use the chat facility on Zoom. And over to you, Anikó. Welcome.
Thank you. I hope you can all hear me now. Yes, okay, because it's always the first thing. I'm going to share my presentation as well. And like it was said before, I hope some of you have some beer and food as well, because it's always nicer to listen to this when you have something with you. I mean, either the ones I put it there beforehand, the cheeses and the beer and chocolate, or just beer or any kind of food, because it's always nicer to listen to beer about beer and food if you have something to kind of grab on. But okay, my name is Anikó Lehtinen. I'm the chairperson of the Finnish Beer Consumer Union called Olutliitto, and I'm working as a journalist and a beer expert, and one of my specialities is actually our beer and food. So I do a lot of beer and food pairing, tasting. I've written a couple of books about beer and food. So this is something that I'm really interested about. But let's start. Can you see my presentation?
Yep, that's perfect.
Good. Okay. And if you have any kind of questions, like Brett said, use the chat. I'm trying to look at it, but Brett, if you can, just a little bit, if I don't notice anything, so if you can just...
Yeah, no problem.
Let me know. Okay, good. So beer and food. Well, actually, I mean, if we go back to the history, beer has always been a food drink. I mean, we've been drinking beer on a daily basis, and also at celebrations, especially in those countries where wine doesn't grow, like in Finland, for example, and on the Nordic countries and in Eastern Europe. I mean, there's a really long connection between the food culture and beer culture, if we look at just the tastes. And beer has always been like a normal people's drink. It's been drank in the countryside and among the working population. And although I think, I mean, everybody has been drinking beer with food, sometimes it's kind of the reputation of beer and food is not that good as wine and food. And I would say that especially in the Nordic countries, when we don't have wine as our own beverage, it's fancier to combine wine and food than beer and food. But I would say that now, because of the craft beer revolution, this has changed. And now, because we have a really wide selection of beers in Europe and actually in the world, people are getting more and more interested about how to combine different beer styles with food. So it's not just about the lager anymore. It's about the sour beers, and it's about the wheat beers, Belgian beers, IPAs worldwide, not just in those countries that that are used to those beer types. Then, so beer is a perfect food drink as long as you consider the special properties compared with other drinks, such as wine. So, I mean, because there is a different components when you look at the tastes in beer than, for example, in wine. So you have to combine it a little bit differently than wine. And what actually, I think, what makes beer an interesting food drink is that there's four basic ingredients that you can't find in any other beverages. And there's like malts, which gives sweetness to the beer, then hops, which gives bitterness and aroma to the beer, then yeast, which gives fruitiness, and then of course water, which combines the mouthfeel within all these three ingredients. And of course, water is one, which gives the carbon dioxide as well. And because of these four ingredients, beer is really unique. And a lot of times, there's like a lot of foods, for example, avocado or smoked fish, which are really hard to find a wine to combine with. But I would say that actually beer is something that it suits with any kind of food if you just find the right beer type. So, I've been doing beer and food, studying and teaching about beer and food for like 20 years, I would say, more than 20 years actually. And I would say that you can find beer with any food. And because of the wild selection of beer types, and because of these four ingredients, it's actually easier to combine beer with food than wine. Well, why beer is a great food drink? Why? It's easy to combine with food. The first thing, actually, it's not just about the beer, but carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is something that we have in most of the beers. In lager beers, for example, it's kind of really bubbly and you can feel the bubbles. In wheat beers, it's more creamy, and in Irish stouts is like really creamy. And then of course we have some beer types, for example, the Finnish sahti, where you don't have that many carbon dioxide. But carbon dioxide in any kind of drink, it actually cleans the taste memory and lightens the whole food and drink experience. And you can try it actually if you do have like the plate of cheese, and if you have a glass of water, you can just put a piece of cheese in your mouth and then just drink some normal water, tap water or non-carbon dioxide water with the cheese. And you can feel that there's actually a kind of a level of greasiness that remains in your mouth. But if you try the cheese with carbon dioxide water, for example, the carbon dioxide washes out the kind of a greasiness in your mouth. So that's why all those drinks, not just beer, but champagne, Coca-Cola, all those are actually really good with food because they light up the experience, and the carbon dioxide washes out the taste memory. So every bite feels fresh and every bite feels like the first, I would say. Then beer is really unique because it's the only beverage with hops and the only beverage with this kind of bitterness and aroma. And that's why, a lot of times people are feeling that, for example, a lot of IPAs, they're really almost too hoppy and maybe bitter. And for example, a lot of females, a lot of young consumers maybe think that they are too hoppy and too bitter and don't want to drink them. But this hoppiness, which may feel really kind of harsh if you're not that used of hoppy beers, with food actually it's lightens down, and at the same times the same hoppiness does the same as carbon dioxide. It cleans the taste memory and reduce the greasiness. So that's why actually it's with hoppy beers, I find that a lot of times the best use of hoppy beers is actually with food, not by themselves, because by themselves maybe they start to feel even too hoppy if you drink a lot of them. But with food, and not just with meals, but with cheeses, with sausages, with these kind of with snacks, for example, you can find that the beer comes more soft and you can feel more the hops, fruitiness, and citrus, and not that much of the bitterness. So hoppy beers are, I mean, they're really, really good with food, basically. And of course, the more bitterness are in the beer, the more greasiness can be in the food. And I mean, that's actually why a lot of people are using hoppy beers with, for example, hamburgers, barbecue. And one of the best dishes actually with hoppy beers are French fries and mayonnaise. That's like really, really nicely with hoppy beers. If people want to kind of try to train their senses to drink more hoppier beers, French fries and mayonnaise are the best companion with hoppy beers. I really recommend that. And of course, I love French fries, so you know, that's another thing. And then, of course, I mean, beer has alcohol. Most of the beers, not all. And actually, when you combine food with alcoholic beers and non-alcoholic beers, you can feel the difference, because with non-alcoholic beers, you have to use a little bit more sweet beers with food, because there is no mouthfeel of alcohol in the beer. Alcohol combines the taste of beer, it rounds it up, and at the same time, it's washes away the kind of the filminess fat from the mouth. And that's the other thing, that if you have really, like, for example, greasy or kind of a mouthfeel dishes, like for example stews or steaks or gratinated vegetables, then I mean it's really nice to drink beers which has a little bit higher ABV. And then, of course, if you have light dishes, I mean, the lighter ABV suits them really well. And then, of course, I mean, in beer, you have a lot of aromas and a lot of flavors that complement the food. And if you find those connections, I mean, you definitely get the wow. But I would say that beer is a great food drink because of these 4 reasons. And I mean, somebody just commented on the chat box that, yeah, I love mayo and ketchup with the fries or aioli. I mean, that's a really good kind of a beer food, I would say. So, I mean, how do you combine beer with food? I mean, I'm not sure how familiar you are combining wine with food, but beer is actually there's like more 2 different ways to combine beer with food. And the first one is with the help of counter tasters. And this is, I mean, we're very familiar. We talk about a lot, like salty and sweet are the most common counter tasters we have. And I would say, fancier way to say some classic combination is, for example, port wine and Stilton cheese. But the same combination you can find in a pizza and a Coca-Cola, because there's the same saltiness and sweetness in the drink and in the food. And I mean, beer, almost every time, expect the sour beers, but I mean, like, not sour beers, they always have sweetness, because there's always some leftover sugar that the yeast couldn't transfer to alcohol. So beers are always a little bit sweet, even though they can feel hoppy or dry or roasted or whatever, but there's still in the basic taste of beer, there's always a little bit of sweetness. And that's why beer goes really well with salty food, because if we again put aside the sour beers, beer doesn't have sourness. So there's like, the beer is always more sweet than, for example, wine, which is always have sourness there. There's always tartness in wine because it's made of fruit, made out of fruit. And I mean, one of the best things it actually is to try like malty beers with salty cheeses. And a lot of people are combining wine and cheese, but I actually say that a lot of times these malty beers are actually better with cheeses than wine. And now we can try our first pairing if you do have that. So there is, if you have Gouda cheese and on your plate, then this is the right time to taste it. And I walk you through how to taste beer and food if you want to kind of feel the differences, if you want to feel how it might convert to something else. Because when we combine beer and food for this way, for example, we combine like cheese and beer, we wait that there is something wow in the end. So I mean, the beer is nice, the cheese is nice, but then in the end, we hope that there's something special going on in our mouth. If we do a beer and food pairing, for example, for dining, for menus, for 3-course meals, then the situation is a little bit different because then we have in our plate, we have a lot of different components. So then we think about the pairing a little bit in a different way. I'm going to get to that later on. But if we want to kind of concentrate on the taste of the beer, the taste of the food, and then combine them together, cheeses are one of the best beer kind of a snack we can think of. And let's see. So if you want to taste beer and food, the basic kind of a way is to taste the beer first. I have some Finnish IPA here. It's from the city of Turku, but I mean, you can have IPA in any kind of place. And this is a very classic style, West Coast IPA. And you always, of course, you look at the beer, you feel the aroma of the beer. I mean, like many IPAs, this is a little bit of American hop side. And then, of course, you taste the beer. And kind of analyze what is the taste of beer. This beer is a very typical West Coast IPA. Hoppy, citrusy, a little bit of tropical fruit, but also caramel malt, fruitiness, and you can feel the malt base. And of course, the aftertaste, which is kind of a harmonic but bitter. Then you try the cheese. I have some basic Gouda cheese, which is actually one of the best flavor pair for any kind of beer. Because I mean, even though the Gouda cheese is not the best cheese with any kind of beer, it's the one cheese that actually suits well with any beer. So you can really kind of try how beer changing with using Gouda cheese. Okay, after I tasted the beer, now I taste the cheese. And again, try to feel how the cheese feels. And when you empty your mouth, then you take another sip of beer, and that way that you smell the beer as well. And then you think about it, if there was a wow in the end. And actually, in this case, in my pairing, my IPA and my Gouda cheese, there is a wow, because now the IPA, which was kind of a hoppy, turned more to fruity, malty, and you can feel the aroma of the hops. Less the bitterness and more the tropical fruits, the citrus, the piney aromas of the beer. And then the cheese the greasiness was washed away, and you can feel kind of the nice aromas of the cheese, not just the grease, but the other aromas as well. So I think this is one of the like the basic good combinations to pairing Gouda cheese with IPA, especially with West Coast type of IPA. And this is something that you can just crave for more. You can, I mean, drink more IPA, more Gouda cheese, and one of the easiest kind of a way to adapt to different kind of IPAs as well. And this is something that I've been doing a lot of pairings, and I think this is something that everybody likes. So there's a question as well. Does the mayo act as an activator of the flavors of the beer? Yes, actually it does, the same way as the cheese does, because mayonnaise as Gouda cheese are really fatty. There's like a lot of grease, and then it kind of builds a kind of a flavor bridge between the beer and the French fries. So it's something that lights, I mean, up the beer, and also then kind of a lights makes the taste of French fries and mayonnaise lighter. So it is kind of working as a flavor bridge, I would say, in Finnish. So I translate it just in English. As same as this Gouda cheese is doing. Did anybody try this, or everybody's just listening? Okay. I hope that somebody had somebody had this, because it's so much nicer to listen to this beer and food talk when you have some, beers and food to try on. And I have to say that, I mean, even though I made you like 3 pairings, I mean, you can actually then taste them between as well, because I mean, I think there's a lot of good pairings in these 2 pairs. So I mean, just feel free to taste them in any order you can have. Oh, and there's a Jakobsen, Yakima IPA and Gouda. Good. Local beers are always good. Okay, so this was the first kind of pairing. So yeah, you can write actually down. This is really nice. You can write down that what combination you had with any pairings, because it's really nice to read them. There's like Finnish Maku Brewing, Pilari IPA. There's classic Thornbridge, Jaipur. So I'm really interested about what kind of combination do you have. So, okay, let's go back. The first way how to combine beer with food was with the counter tasted. But then the second one is with the harmony flavors. So you seek for the same aroma in the beer and in the food. And I think one of the best actually pairing in this one is the little bit sour, not actually sour, but a little bit like fruity, citrusy taste of wheat beer, Belgium tallow wheat beer, and then a little bit kind of a sourish goat cheese. And with goat cheese salad, one of the best drinks are actually Belgium tallow white beers, because then there's kind of a little sourness of the beer, little sourness on the cheese, and when you add them up, the cheese becomes more creamy, and the beer becomes more kind of fruity. And there's a lot of different, a lot of other combinations like that. For example, smoked fish and then a porter or stout beer. This is the same, because there's roastiness in the beer and there is also real roastiness in the fish. So it's a really nice combination as well. So this is another way to combine beer and food. And now we can have the second pairing, which is, I think, my favorite. I love to pair desserts with beer. And one of my favorite kind of a combination is chocolate, milk chocolate and sour beers. I have again a Finnish product. This is Malaskoski Brewery from Seinäjoki, and they have a lambic type of Greek beer made with wild yeast. It's not a lambic because you can't say lambic outside of Belgium, but it's kind of a lambic style beer. Really fruity, has a lot of cherry in it. And then of course I have Finnish chocolate. And then first we try the beer again. This is on the sour side of lambic beers. I mean, we have like the sweet lambic beers with sugar in them, which and then normally their ABV is like 3.5, and then we have the sour lambics or creeks, which are the ABV is higher, and these are more sour. And actually, both of them are working really well with milk chocolate. But we feel the beer's aroma. It's cherry-like. There is like other fruits. There's little actually cherry stone as well. And if you taste the beer, nice cherry-like, really fruity, not too sour. Then again, take a piece of chocolate and let it melt in your mouth. And it has to be like milk chocolate, not the dark one. But this combination needs a milk chocolate with a lot of fulfilled, rich chocolate taste, but not too strong. And then you taste the beer again. And this is, I think, a really nice combination because it's almost like a cherry chocolate cake. So you can feel, I mean, the same when you have a rich chocolate cake and cherry inside of the cake, cherry jam, or for example, like in the picture, cherry jam in with the cake. So I think this is one of my favorite combinations. And I'm really interested to see what sour beers do you have with your milk chocolate, and what do you think about this combination? You can write it down in the chat as well if you think it's a good or bad combination. I think, I mean, chocolate is really like cheese. Chocolate is really kind of nice to pair with beer, because even though those people who are like, I don't like beer, they like chocolate normally, and that you can kind of lure them to like beer as well. And if you enjoy beer with chocolate, you can have a beer and chocolate tasting. You can have, I mean, it's really kind of a nice dessert to have different kind of chocolates and different kind of beers. And beer and chocolate is a kind of a different way to enjoy these products, because a lot of people are combining beer with salty dishes, but actually beer is really, really nice with dessert dishes and without, for example, chocolate dishes. And well, the couple of things you have to remember when you combine beer with chocolate, one is that any kind of sour beer will do. But if the beer is not sour, then the ABV should be a little bit higher than maybe 4.5, because there's so much grease in the chocolate. So, I mean, we need the alcohol, that mouthfeel of alcohol to work with the grease of the chocolate, because otherwise it might be the beer is too weak. Then, I mean, there's a lot of suitable beers with chocolate, like dark lager beers with roastiness, strong Belgian ales with the raisin and kind of a dried fruit aromas, dark roasted porters, stouts. And then, of course, I think all the sour beers are really nice, especially the ones with different fruits or different berries. myself, I personally like most the berry flavored sour beers with chocolate. For example, Creek, but I mean, raspberry, blueberry, all kind of berry sour beers will too. And with white chocolate, I mean, Belgium style wheat beer is really nice, or berry flavored sour beer. Milk chocolate, IPA, white beer, or sour beer, like we just tasted. And then, of course, with dark chocolate, I do like stout or porter, because there's the harmony flavors of roastiness and bitterness of the chocolate and of the beer. But also, I think with the dark chocolate, creeks, or especially these little bit sweetened, more sweet creeks, are really nice. Let's see, what do you have there? There is really nice beers, Finnish beers, Brussels beers, Greek. Oh, that's nice as well. And then yes. So this is one of my favorite combinations, and it's my favorite as well, because people don't wait for this. I mean, a lot of times when you offer them beer with chocolate or beer with desserts, they're first like, what? But you can offer them like small glass. You don't have to, offer them a whole bottle. So I, for example, use wine glasses or even dessert wine glasses when I do beer and chocolate dessert tastings or desserts in general. So because you just need a little glass of beer with the dessert, not more. So now you can lure any friend of yours into the world of beer by using chocolate, which is really nice. Alrighty, then let's continue. At the end, you can think about which combination was the best. And like I said, feel free to kind of taste them in other orders as well, because then you can feel see what is your top favorite. Then this is something else. When you have the whole dish, not just the chocolate or just the cheese, but when you have like the whole dish, then I think it's really kind of not the right way to write down that this beer goes with pork or this beer goes with chicken, because I mean you can make any kind of dish with pork or with chicken or vegetables. So I think, you should think about the aroma level of the dish, and then pair that with the same aroma level of beer. For example, if you have a kind of a light dish, for example, a cold chicken salad, then the flavor level of beer should be light. Then it means, if you think about beer styles, Berliner Weisse, Belgian wheat beer, Gose, golden ale, fruity pale ale, maybe some Nepas, or European lager or pils. Those are, in the same level as the dish is. So when you combine them, even though the beer is not maybe a perfect match with the lettuce in the salad or with some ingredients, but with the whole dish, the level of the aroma is the same. So it suits really well with the beer. So the food is not going on over the beer, or the beer is not going over the food. For example, with this kind of light dish, if you are mixing that with, for example, a hoppy IPA, then you don't feel the dish anymore. You just feel the beer. And that's why it's really the easiest way to think about the level of the aroma of the dish, and then mix it with the same aroma level of the beer. For example, if you have a medium strength flavor level, like roasted salmon, creamy mushroom sauce. Then there's like more grease, more roastiness, more aroma. Then of course the beer should be medium level. Then for example, American style hoppy lagers, German beers, white beers, red ales, bocks, spice sour beers, or light colored Trappist beers are really nice, or saisons. Those are, if you think about the level of the aroma, or medium level aroma beers. And then of course, if you have like really strong aromas in the food, like game stew, for example, this rooted vegetable stews and really kind of a not spicy but strong aroma dishes, then you need some strong flavor level of the beer as well. So double bock IPAs, dark Trappist ales, stouts, porters, brown ales, they all have strength in the taste and suit really well with these kind of dishes. And then if you have spicy or hot dishes, then you have to go back to the light flavor beer, because these if you have a really spicy or even hot dishes, if you have like bitter beers, they crash, and then the hotness feels more hot and the bitterness feels more bitter. So the best beers with like really hot Tex-Mex food, for example, with jalapeno, which is like a little bit even a vinegary side of hotness. It's fruity, light, kind of a refreshing beer. And if you think about, I mean, in a lot of countries, actually, that is the combination. I mean, if you have a really hot dishes, the beer is always malty, gently hopped, and really light. So when you pair beer with dishes, I think this is the right way to kind of think about the basic level of the dish. Because I mean, for example, chicken, you can make a cold chicken salad when the flavor level is light. Then you can make chicken herbs in bake in the oven and more pepper and more spices. Then it's a medium strength dish. Then you can make actually a really strong chicken stew, for example, with bacon, mushrooms. Then it's a strong, dish. And of course, you can make a chicken taco, which is like then a spicy food. So that's why I'm not a fan of that we say that this beer goes with chicken dishes, but that's because that's just not true, basically. I don't know if you can follow me, but that's something when I do, like, for example, menu beer recommendations for restaurant menus. This is kind of the one thing I follow all the time. Okay. Then our last pairing, blue cheese and port or stout. And blue cheese is really salty and fatty. And then we need some beer which has kind of a maltiness in the beer. I have a Finnish beer. This is Takatalojen Tompuri, which is a Finnish beer, and actually this is more like an Imperial Stout side, but it's between like Imperial Stout and Stout, I would say. And these beers, the stouts and porters, even though they feel dry, they do have the maltiness in the base of their taste. And that's why I think the level of aroma is quite similar. And that's why it's good to have the saltiness and the kind of the fattiness of the cheese, and then the maltiness and roastiness of the beer. But let's taste this one. There's like, you can feel the dark coffee, the dark chocolate in the aroma of the beer. And then in the aftertaste, you feel a little bit of the hoppiness. But in the middle, you can feel the malty aromas. Then a lot of depends on the cheese. I have a Castello Blue, which is a Danish blue cheese, one of my favorites. Very nice one. Really a lot of grease and salty in this cheese. And then let's try it again. And now this beer, which was kind of harshly roasted and even hoppy, because of the grease and because of the salt of the cheese, it becomes more round and more kind of malty. What kind of beers do you have there with cheese? And what kind of cheese? It's always interesting to see the cheese as well. Now, when we tried all the 3 pairs, you can actually try this one, for example, with the chocolate and the IPA with blue cheese as well, and compare how do you like them, because all those combinations I think are really good as well. And if we talk about blue cheese, I have to say that, you know, we have this Finnish specialty called sahti, and sahti is one of the best beers with blue cheese as well. But of course, we didn't, put it in this beer pairing because, well, it's really rare to have sahti even in Finland. Okay, but just please put the beers. What do you have there to the chat, so I can see what kind of beers and cheese do you have. There's some Finnish ones which are really common one for me. There's Sinebrychoff Porter, and then there's Murphy's Irish Stout, Flying Couch Black Ice, Guinness. Yeah, and there's, for example, Guinness, and Guy says that it's not powerful enough to stand up to the cheese. Yeah, maybe because Guinness actually has just 4.2 ABV level, and maybe that's too little if you have a really greasy cheese. But you can try Guinness with milk chocolate, for example, or the Gouda. With the Gouda, it should be really nice. So beer and cheese, when we taste beer and cheese, we should have the beer, like I said, a little bit higher level of ABV. And you can try blue cheese with porter or IPA, as you can try now as well. And then Gouda with Abbey style of beer, as well as barley wine. Brie is really nice with Saison or Lambic, especially with Creek. And then goat cheese, wheat beer, pale, sour, and then raspberry sour beer. So you can do your own beer and cheese tasting with these kind of tasting pairs. And it's interesting that flavor of the beer and cheese, they do have the same elements, because they both are a result of process creating by microbes. And then actually you can feel kind of the same aromas. There's fruitiness, acidity, and other aromas typical of fermentation. And actually the beer recipe is the second oldest recipe in the world. The oldest recipe is the recipe of cheese. And you can actually try the IPA with the blue cheese, and you can try with the Gouda with the Stout, and let me know what do you think. Then some beer and food trends. Well, one which is really nice is that a lot of times nowadays the wine package with 3-4 courses of meal, there's a lot of times one beer in it. So a lot of sommeliers in fancy restaurants, they do add beer with food as well. And of course we do have alcohol-free beer menus, and even fine dining menus totally with the beer package. And because a beer is a really relaxed drink, but it can be a really fancy drink. So with beer, you can offer beer and food menus in the fancy restaurants or really relaxed ones. And I think, I mean, vegan food with beer is something that it's quite new, but you have to do a little bit different pairings with vegan food, but it is really interesting and I've done it a lot. And then, of course, there's like the surprising combinations, which I love. And I've been doing a lot of tastings with like beer and ice cream, beer with candy, beer with cakes, beer and different kind of pastry. So that's something that really should try. For example, beer and ice cream, it's a really nice combination to mix different beers with different ice creams, for example, during the summer. And then beer and cooking, I'm almost at the end. The basic rule, of course, is the stronger the beer, the more adds flavor to the food. And I think, I mean, with beer, I would say that hoppy beers are not cooking beers, because I mean, there's for example, the hoppiness. It's always the taste level, flavor level of hoppiness increases when you cook the food, and there's so many different types of beer that I would just say that, you know, drink the hoppy beers and use other kind of beers with cooking. There was a question about vegan food and beer. I would say that and you say as well that saisons go well with the vegetable bitters, and I would say because the vegan oils are different than the animal-based oils, so the molecule structure in your mouth is different. So when you combine vegan food with beer, the beer should be lighter in taste and in ABV, because the nature of the vegan oils are more kind of there is always a little bit of bitters in that. So with vegan food, mostly, I mean, fruited beers, wheat beers are really nice. Then lighter pale ales. Then in dark beers, like more the dark lagers, which has kind of a sweetness of the malt base. I would say that those are the ones with vegan food. For example, vegan chocolate goes really well with sweet lambic beers, because you need a little bit more sweetness to them. Okay, so beer and cooking, some tips. I mean, beer and cooking, hops gives the food bitterness. I wouldn't use really hoppy beers, but then yeast gives like fruitiness, acidity. Malt gives the food sweetness, roastiness, and of course carbon dioxide give fluffiness to doughs. And for example, if I bake bread, I normally use wheat beer. I mean, I don't use water, I use wheat beer in bread, because I think wheat beer gives a really nice fruity aroma to bread, and it suits for really nicely in different breads. If I do rye bread, then I use dark lagers instead of water. And you can use beers in, I mean, any kind of cooking, in marinades, in sauces, in salad dressings. I mean, different beer styles, they really kind of spice up, I think, the cooking. You can have fruitiness in the beer, you can have roastiness. And for example, in sauces, in game sauce, one of my favorite one is Rauch beer or creek beer. Just give a little extra to the sauce. And also, I mean, there's like, you can use beer in broths, in floaters, in softeners for sauces and pastas, as a season, and as a weather for cakes. And that's something that I do. If I do a chocolate cake, then I make it more moist with creek beer, because I think that's a really nice combination. And of course, for example, if you do a summery adult fruit salad, you can put a little bit of sour beer on the top. Or vanilla ice cream and dark beer, stout or porter. That's one of my favorite desserts, for example. So beer in cooking, I mean, you can do anything with that. The only thing is that hoppy beers are the ones which I think that not are the best ones. And here at the end, this is one of my typical pairing. So there's cheese with blue cheese with IPA, then actually Gouda cheese with barley wine, then some candy with sour beer, and then some porter and dark chocolate. And these pairings are the ones that you can mix and match and taste them in different order as well. And this is something that you can, I mean, have a really nice evening to talk about beer and food tasting, beer and food pairing, and kind of enjoy the evening with your friends. Thank you. I think.
Anikó, that was fantastic. Thank you. I don't know whether I'm hungry or thirsty or both. We've got some more questions, I think. I don't know if you want to, I don't know if you've got, wanted to have a look at the chat window. There's some questions.
Yes.
A number of questions. Maybe we could, I think
I answered most of them.
Yeah, okay. Is there any other questions there that people want to ask? Otherwise, we will call it a day. Thank you very much, Anikó. That was very entertaining and superb. And what I'll do, as I said before, I will put it onto the EBCU website in due course. I don't know, Bo, did you want to sort of sum up, or Bo normally does the little bit at the start, but I think he's going to do it a different way around. It's going to be the final course, not the starter. Is that correct, Bo?
Sorry for my late reply. I was on a service job on a late plane, so I got here right to 8 o'clock, and then the technicalities was of course not working. But it's an amazing presentation as well, Anikó. I just to have a small comment is that here in my house, in the most northern part of Denmark, we have a lot of fish as well. I live in a harbor, big harbor. And actually, when my mother-in-law normally use white wine for the white fish, she actually today has learned to drink Duvel. So that's, I take as a very promising relationship in that way, because you have this Belgian strong ale to combine with the fish, and that's amazing. Yeah, of course, we can do a lot in the baking as well. We don't do a roast on the grill without 4 hours in porter, a very strong porter. So it's marinated with that. So it's a very interesting subject, this one. And as you told yourself, you can take the same free beer, switch it around and taste something else, and it's great. Maybe not the blue cheese. I'm not so good at it. Not even the Limfjords porter as well. But a big thank you also for Brett for doing this, and keep a watch on our webpage for more to come. And of course, all the nice pictures and the recording will be on our website to later on. Thank you, Finland.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Cheers.